Welcome back. Galapagos is the Spanish word for tortoise, and the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador were given that name after giant turtles were discovered there by explorers. One of those explorers, Charles Darwin, made the untouched islands famous. In 1835, he used their unique wildlife as examples for his theory of evolution, describing the origin of species. More than a century later, the government of Ecuador declared them to be a national park, limiting the number of residents that can live on them. But it has become apparent that human settlement and tourism has upset the ecological balance. Tens of thousands visit each year. We sat down with the director of the World Wildlife Fund in Ecuador, Hugo Arnal, to discuss the Galapagos and its sustainability.
Hugo, welcome. First, let's begin by talking about the Galapagos Islands. Tell us what makes them such a unique and special place.
The Galapagos is perhaps the best tropical archipelago conserved. Around 95% of all the biodiversity, original biodiversity of the archipelago is still there, in spite of having an economy that is growing at around 20% a year, sustained. We now have 4 little towns. 2 of them are very small, but the 2 others are starting to be mid-sized towns, total population of around 23,000 people, and still the vast majority of the species are there.
A lot of people associate tortoises or turtles with the Galapagos Islands. What other unique species exist there?
We have important birds like the Galapagos Albatross, also called the waved albatross, which is a critically endangered bird. It only nests in Española Island. The other important species is the swallowtail gull. It's also an endemic of the Galapagos, only breeds there. Other species are very restricted to the Galapagos, like the lava gull, which is an archipelago endemic bird and is very uncommon. Probably the global population of that species is somewhere between 350 to 500 individuals, so not too many. And also we have the penguin, which is another very interesting species that people love to see, and many visitors have the opportunity to do snorkeling with them. They like to play with you in some places, and it's a unique species to the Galapagos.
Cats, dogs, rats, pigs, goats have all bred furiously on the islands. What have been the consequences of their existence there?
There has been important consequences. Some of the very few extinctions that we have seen in the Galapagos were because of invasive species. Probably somewhere between 65 to 75% of all the extinctions have occurred on islands. And of that, somewhere between 80 and 90% or even more is because of invasive species. So historically, as far as we know, invasive species has been the main driver for extinctions in islands. And that continues. In the Galapagos, slightly over half the bigger islands are invaded by rats. However, the Galapagos National Park and the Ecuadorian government, together with partners like Island Conservation, some American universities, have done a terrific job in fighting that threat, and in many cases, cleaning islands of invaders, like they recently did in Pinzon Island, an island that was invaded around 140 years ago by black rat. And this year was the first time in 140 years that the tortoises were able to really reproduce without any problem.
Climate change has also had a major influence on the Galapagos Islands. What have been the effects?
So climate change is happening, and because of climate change, what we will see is a shift in the distribution of the different ecosystems. And that will also influence the species. We will see some species becoming more abundant, other species will become more scarce. And unfortunately, what can be predicted is that invasive species will become more common, because we are talking of species that are very flexible, that adapt quickly. That's the nature of an invasive species. So climate change is very important. We need to start taking that into consideration when we plan conservation actions to make sure that we don't focus only on how we see the distribution of species and habitats today, but how the distribution is going to be in 50 years from now.
Human settlement has also presented a problem for the Galapagos Islands. Talk to us about the effects that people have had and what is being done to stop the damage.
As tourism develops, population increases. Basically, you have more tourists, you need more services. You need more food, you need more energy, and at the same time, as the local population increases, because there are more economic opportunities, etc., what happens is that you also need more fuel and energy for that local population that is increasing because tourism is increasing. And for a country that depends on tourism as the fourth main income of revenue, that is an important issue. Because the country, and so far the country has done a great job in managing that. Not an easy job though, but has done a great job trying to find that fine line between increasing tourism, increasing revenue, generating employment, and conserving the Galapagos.
Hugo Arnal from the World Wildlife Fund, thank you so much for being here with us.